Undercurrent, sponsored by John Hughes in Victoria Park. Choose your station before you choose your program. Absolutely.
Hello and welcome back to Undercurrent, which this evening finds me in the stunning Claysbrook Cove here in East Perth, one of the most successful urban renewal projects our city has ever seen. Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes I do tend to feel a little unnerved on public transport. Jasmine York investigates.
Perth Trains prides itself on being one of the safest networks in Australia. So, are our trains really safe to travel on?
We really have very high levels of security across our whole system, our buses and trains. We have high-level lighting at all the stations. We have emergency telephones on the platforms, buttons on the trains where you can tap the button and you can get through to the driver. The stations are designed in such a way as to minimise the threat of people hiding in the bushes or anything like that. There's an urban design technique which is designed to make public places safer. So we have all those things in place, and of course we also have the best CCTV surveillance in Australia, far and away the best CCTV in Australia, which is monitored 24/7 in a big facility which was only opened a month or so ago by Minister Buswell. It cost about $7.5 billion, a room which has got all the cameras feed into this one room and they're monitored 24/7. We have about 1,300 cameras across the train system. That's at stations. We also have cameras on multiple cameras on every train carriage, multiple cameras in every bus.
What type of training do the transit guards go through to sort of keep, I guess, the public safe?
It's a quite lengthy training. It runs for, I think, probably 14 or 15 weeks. And they do all manner of things. They do, clearly there's a physical element to it. They're trained in the use of, they've got extendable batons, they've got handcuffs, they've got pepper spray, not all of them, only the ones who are out on the system. We don't use pepper spray inside the trains. But they're also trained in conflict resolution, and that's both the words they use and the body language they use to try and diffuse situations, because all these, the handcuffs, the batons, the pepper spray are last resort. It's much better to try and diffuse, to talk down a situation. So they have extensive training in that, also in various aspects of the law.
Once through the night, and there was a lot of drunk people around and stuff, so you don't feel as safe maybe at night time.
I don't normally travel at night, but generally it's pretty safe.
If you were to pay an extra 50 cents and you were guaranteed a transit guard at your station, would you pay an extra 50 cents?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it would be a good investment.
Definitely would.
No.
No?
I think it should be. I think the fare should be averaged out.
We know that if there are transit guards visible, and we try to make them visible, whether it be at stations or on the trains or just in the general station precinct, it does discourage the people who would be perhaps otherwise indulging in antisocial behaviour. So they are a deterrent, and we like to use them that way.
Taser guns are being discussed as a possible new safety solution for Perth transit guards. After asking public opinion, most people are happy with the Perth trains. However, some people are willing to pay an extra 50 cents to have a secure transit guard at their next station. Jasmine York for Undercurrent.
Well, it's hard to imagine that Claysbrook Cove was once a rather run-down area. These days, it's one of the most upmarket places to live in Western Australia, and if you ask me, a little bit Venice. Well, next up, the Chief Executive of REWA, Anne Arnold, gives us the lowdown on the property market.
My name is Anne Arnold and I'm the Chief Executive of the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia. I thought it would be useful at this time of the year just to have a little review of what the most important things that have happened in the real estate market over the last 12 months, and maybe even to think about what might be coming up in the next 12 months. And of course, real estate, as many of you would already know, particularly if you're in the market and you're trying to sell a house, things are pretty tough out there. It isn't easy to sell your property. Many people are having trouble reaching their price expectations and having to accept a lower price if they need, for all sorts of reasons, to move on to a new house. Of course, this impacts on my members of the Real Estate Institute. Agents are finding that turnover is low, so commissions are low, and many agents in the last 12 months have actually gone out of the business. So we estimate that probably 15 to 20% of real estate practitioners have disappeared out of the industry simply because they don't have the capacity to keep their doors open when commissions are slow. Many agents who have an established property management business, so rent roll where they manage property for investors, of course, have an ability to survive, but even for them, things are pretty tough. One of the good news stories is if you are an investor, rents are on the increase. We've noticed now 2 quarters of increases in the median rent in Perth, and vacancy rates are very, very low for this time of the year. They're down to about 2.1%, which in a November time frame is very unusual. Maybe in February or March they would be that low, but not right now. So there's some signs potentially that the investment market is going to pick up with yields improving. But apart from that, there are very few good news stories out there. There have been a lot of really interesting things happening in the real estate sector, and I suppose the one that's probably most important to consumers is the real estate scam, where 2 West Australian families lost a house because of identity theft. One occurred this year and one the previous year. So the government has now responded, and of course REWA on behalf of its members has responded as well, to setting in place some systems to ensure that identity fraud can't happen again in this circumstance. So if you're selling your house and you phone an agent and say, come and list my house, instead of turning up and getting you to sign an agreement, he will now ask you for identity, or she will ask you for identity, and they will need to see a copy of your passport and a copy of your driver's licence in order to be able to assure themselves that you are the true owner of the property. And the other critical thing, I suppose, is the introduction by the federal government of national licensing of real estate agents, so that an agent who's got a licence in WA can go to any other state in Australia and practice real estate, and vice versa. But it's proving to be a long process to get the rules in place. And ultimately, probably won't come in now until about 2013. So these have been big changes for agents, ongoing, and a lot more of the same kind of work next year. So let's hope the market in 2012 picks up a bit so that it makes it all worthwhile.
Well, this week, John Hammond speaks with Terry Dobson, a man who's had a very interesting career change. From starting out as a police officer to now working as a lawyer, this week we find them at the Court Wine Bar.
Terry Dobson, lawyer, former police officer. Good to be having a beer with you at the Court Wine Bar this afternoon.
Lovely to be here, John. Nice place.
Terry, you're someone that's had an incredibly varied career. What made you make the jump from police officer to lawyer? It's a big jump in some respects.
Yes, I always wanted to be a lawyer, even in high school, and I actually was able to go in, but my father got ill, seriously ill, and I just decided to get a steady job. I thought, my older brother and older sister had steady jobs, and I thought I'll get a steady job as well, and then go back to university. That didn't happen. It took 20 years, 18 years.
And you're very glad you've made that decision, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And you're loving the practice of the law?
I do. I really do enjoy it, and it might sound corny and cliched, but we actually do get to help people.
But you're defending the people, Terry, that you once used to lock up, the same sort of people.
I am, but I only defend innocent people, John.
Yeah, I know that. And Terry, what about your police officer friends from the past? Do they see you as some sort of turncoat?
They often make the joke that you've jumped the fence or you've gone to the dark side. That's one of their favourite sayings. But many of them now have moved into management positions, and they realise that it's not all cut and dried. Someone being charged, it's not as simple as what it might first appear. And
do you think it's opened your eyes up being a lawyer and being a defence counsel, that it isn't as black and white as what it might have been when you were a police officer on the street?
It has. Sentencing is certainly one issue which I think I have a far greater understanding of how difficult it is to sentence anyone, and also just how difficult it is to imprison someone. I'm not talking about any judges in particular, but they get some incredible criticism, and it is so hard to actually sentence an individual. There's so many factors you have to take into account, and that's why we have the big thing that there should be no mandatory sentencing.
Terry, when you first got onto your feet in a courtroom before a jury, what was the feeling?
First time, it's at once terrifying and it's also great. And I suppose there's a thing about lawyers who do like to appear in court, that they love the sound of their own voice. So we all just get on our feet and we rabbit on.
You don't like the sound of your own voice though, do you, Terry?
No, not much, John.
And Terry, is it true that you once represented someone that fell asleep in a bordello?
Yes. Yes, he did. And I don't think he should have been charged. I think he should have been cautioned. He was pretty drunk, and I don't think he got fair value for his money in any event, so he'd been punished enough.
How do you actually relax? What do you do to wind down?
I love sport, but in particular Aussie rules.
And you're a keen fan of the Eagles, aren't you?
Yes, yep, I'm a member of the Eagles and have been for a long, long time. So yeah, I love West Coast and the games. I enjoy cricket. I pretty much enjoy all sports, and I do a bit with my boys and just get out and mix with friends. And I'm probably known that I do like to party. Maybe I party too hard on occasion, but I do enjoy myself.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And in terms of your passion for AFL, you have a son, don't you, that would be keen to take on the AFL path?
He would be. He's had a pretty tough time last couple of years. We worked out the other day that this is the first year in 4 years that he finished the season injury-free. And he's pretty much lost 2 full seasons with osteitis pubis. Had a broken leg, broken hand, so he's had a tough run.
In terms of where you head to from here, Terry, you've recently set up your own business. You're a sole practitioner working very close to the criminal law courts. Where do you see yourself now going from that?
I'd still like to keep practising as a solicitor and barrister, meaning I can deal direct with clients and I can still work in court, whatever the court might be. I think with my nature, I don't think that I'd ever go to the bar, become a barrister alone, because I simply love dealing with people. I love dealing with my clients. I get to know their families. I get to know lots of people. And that's one part of the law I really love.
Terry, thank you for coming along today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure we're going to bump into each other down the terrace very shortly.
You will. Thanks, John. Fantastic. Thanks.
Well, sadly, that brings us to the end of another episode of Undercurrent. But as always, we would love to hear your thoughts and any ideas you may have. So join our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, or visit our website, wtvperth.com.au. I'm Christy Molliger, and you can join me again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for our brand new Roxanne's Cake House here on WTV. Until then, take care.
Undercurrent, sponsored by John Hughes in Victoria Park. Choose your station before you choose your program. Absolutely.